Hey y'all. I'm coming in from a different angle today. Let's see if I can get y'all know it always takes a second, so I can't see if I'm live or not. So if I'm live, somebody say something while I try to get this to work on my phone. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, there we go. Dang, this thing the lag is trash, man. The lag is so trash. It's like it goes from like 0 people watching to all of a sudden like everybody watching at one time, and then I can see everybody's comments. Super crazy. Hello, hello, hello. Leah, I am doing well. How is everyone doing? Was today Tuesday? On this big Tuesday, this wonderful Tuesday. How's everyone's week been so far? We're only 2 days into the week, but my week has already been crazy. It's been super crazy. So we have a couple of ways that we can do this thing. So the purpose of this was that originally I was supposed to shoot a whole video because I was on another live, and the question was kind of, or the conversation kind of got around like, what's the difference between um, comics and graphic novels, and how does manga fit into that? So instead of making it a video, I thought that maybe I could do it kind of as a live session. That way it could be a little bit more interactive. And if, people want to ask me questions, it's easier to answer questions for me like on live as opposed to um, answering questions on answering questions through comments, because it's a delay for me when it comes to answering comments on videos. Thank you. It's a dress, believe it or not, but I have leggings or tights on underneath it just to kind of, because weather is getting a little bit cooler. Listen, Brandy, my morning was trash. So before, just give people a little bit more time to join in. So this morning I was headed to work. We walk out the door, walking to the car, and um, baby girl decides that she wants to poop as we're getting in the car to take her to school and I go to work. So we had to come all the way back in the house so she could get her diaper change, which ended up resulting in me leaving my work keys on the counter. And I was driving to her school when I figured out that I did not have my work keys. So that was fun this morning because I got to work and no one was there. So I was locked out the building. So my day was, yeah, I get it, Brandy. I trust me, I get it. Oh gosh, I get it. It's been, yeah, yeah. Hey, hey, hey. Yeah, that's what I said too. I was like, dang, girl, like, I mean, you really just didn't have to. You could have, I don't know. I wish you would have waited to poop until she got to school, but we know how that goes. Hello, Trin. How are you, my love? Hello, Mackenzie. All right. So, are we good to go? Does anybody have any questions before I start? Is there anything that anybody is looking for in particular out of this live? Basically, what I'm going to be doing is talking a little bit about um, my experience reading comics, kind of what the difference is between graphic novels and comics, which there's a wide variation in explanations between graphic novels and comics. But I'm going to give you what my definition is and what I've kind of learned over the years. Um, talk a little bit about manga, but I do want to preface this by saying completely that I am not the end all be all, okay, when it comes to comics, graphic novels, or manga. I read a lot. However, there are people in this community that read just as much as me, if not more, and they are more experts in this discussion than I am, but I just wanted to add kind of my own opinion. So, just for some notes, some people that I particularly follow that read a lot of comics, graphic novels, and manga include Lazy Owl, Literally Graphic. Shay Geeks Out is a very, 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 very good resource in terms of manga. She reads a lot of, like, a lot, a whole lot of manga. Same with Mama Loves Manga. She reads a whole lot. Reading with Nori is another good resource. Manga Hoarder, I'm not too sure if she uploads anymore. I haven't seen anything lately, but it could just be on my end with me being so busy. Um, and I think how you say her name is Sinya Reads. She's in school, so she doesn't upload as much, but what she does upload is really, really great in terms of resources. And Comics Explain is a huge, um, he's a big YouTuber or comic kind of YouTuber. I think he has like, um, I think he has like at least over he's got to have over a million, if not, more than that. But he has a lot, and he actually explains everything in relation to comics. He explains so much. So I think I just saw, yeah, okay, Brandy. All right, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure if she was on hiatus or not, but I still would recommend watching their backlog because they had a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff of like where I started with manga. I got a lot from um, Manga Hoarder. Okay. I have never heard of this person, but I will be sure to check them out. Okay, so is that it in terms of questions before I get started? Is that it? Leah, you just said, okay, there we go. I was about to say, I'm waiting for it to pop up on the screen. Yeah. And understanding comics, he just does a great job, especially if you're trying to get into like DC and Marvel. He does a really, really great job. So let me get some examples. I'm sitting from a different angle because I'm actually sitting in front of the shelf where I keep all of um my stuff. Yeah, I guess that's a good example. Um, I will use this one. And we'll grab a graphic novel. Okay, so um, a lot of times on BookTube, what you'll see is that people kind of use graphic novel and comic interchangeably. For a lot of reasons, I don't make it a point to correct people because I get why people use the term interchangeably. And it's kind of confusing, and definitions change depending upon like who you're talking to. So specifically for me, and from what I've read and what I've come to be like my own personal understanding, is that comics are very much so serialized. Okay, so when you have a comic, they usually come like this, and they're boarded, and they are not more than anywhere between, I don't know, like maybe 25, 30 pages, and it's bound together and it's stapled on the side. So it's kind of on the flimsy side. Um, And from what I've seen is that like a lot of where the term graphic novel came from, which wasn't really heavily used until like the 70s and the 80s, was trying to get rid of the stigma that was associated with comics, especially when I believe they started airing Batman, and people were finding comics to be childish, whereas graphic novels, I think the name itself um, made it seem like it was more acceptable literature. And the common definition that went around when it came to understanding the difference between comics and graphic novels was that graphic novels were just longer. So you'll see even like DC, I believe DC and Marvel both were using the term graphic novel at some point, but it was just to kind of designate their longer works as being graphic novels. Now, what I see a lot of debate and understanding in terms of graphic novels and comics is that comics are, like I said, serialized and they don't tell the story all at one time. So you get pieces and parts of the story, but it's told over an extended period of time. Whereas when you have something like this, which is a good example of a middle grade graphic novel with Raina Telgemeier, you have a contained story, meaning that you have a beginning, a middle, and an end um, combined in this one book. So you're not going to, I mean, you can have volumes of a graphic novel, but most likely you're not going to go past a couple. And it's this one story. Whereas you pick up something like a comic, this is just a short insight to the story as a whole. Now, where it gets confusing and where I've seen it in a lot of different places is that some people will call this a graphic novel because it is bound up as a book. But I do not consider this a graphic novel because this is still serialized, meaning that it contains 4 issues of a serialized work. I just end up calling it a trade because it helps kind of get rid of that confusion of what's the difference between this and what's the difference between this. Some volumes can feel like they contain, like they have a contained story, but for the most part, in my experience, they really don't. They cover certain story arcs, but it's not necessarily a middle, a beginning, and a definite end. So, like the Wicked and the Divine series has 9 volumes to it, and I wouldn't consider one of these volumes to be a graphic novel. I would still consider it to be a comic book series, and that the term for it is just it's a trade. It's just a bind up of 4 or more issues. Whereas if I was to pick up Ghost or recommend Ghost, I would say that this is a graphic novel for middle grade readers because of the fact that it has a middle, beginning, and an end. Does that make sense? I know that it's not much of the history behind it because honestly, going into the history of comics and graphic novels in general, it's very extensive. I mean, you have comics that go all the way back to the 20s and the 30s, and it's super, super um, is super extensive. It's super, super extensive. So that's kind of like the quick. So when you think graphic novel, think a self-contained story that has a middle, a beginning, and end. When you think comic, think serialization, where you have a lot of different parts of it, and you get it in like story arcs, but the story itself is not just told in one volume. So I hope I hope that all it all comes together in that sense. Hey, Deidre. Yeah, for our community, I think it's a little different because I think that everybody in the booktube community generally just considers comic books, graphic novels kind of be the the same thing, and they're used very interchangeably. So, like, I've seen people like hold up a volume of, Saga is a really, really really awesome community. And people hold up and be like, yeah, I read this graphic novel. And it's like, technically, in some people's eyes, it's not wrong to say that they're reading a graphic novel because some people consider trades to be graphic novels. It's just that for me, I don't say that and I don't look at it as a graphic novel because to me, even though it may be a story arc, I feel like at the same time, it's not self contained because there's so much more to the story than just that one volume. But there are some graphic novels out there, like for instance, like Watchmen. Like some people consider that to be a graphic novel and not a comic book, even though you're looking at it being published by one of the top comic book publishers. It can get very nuanced, but I think for the most part, if you think about it in those terms, it will make things less confusing. And do understand too, when you run into certain circles, people will debate and argue about whether they feel like those definitions are truly interchangeable or not. It really all depends upon who you talk to. But I think for the most part, like that's where my definitions lie. And that's how I help myself differentiate. Because prior to me even doing a lot of reading and just researching and looking at different opinions, I was calling comics graphic novels too, which is why I'm not so, I think I internally cringe when I see it happen, but I'm not quick to judge people either because I understand why it's super confusing to tell the difference because at the end of the day, it's all a form of graphic art or graphic literature. So people would say, like, I mean, are they technically wrong? No, not really. But it kind of helps to differentiate, especially when you get down into the nitty gritty of reading a lot of comics, which I mean, we can talk about. Say, hey, Rebecca, I just want to say hey before you dipped out. Yeah, just tell me like what genre are you specifically looking for because there's so many and just touching a little bit too like on manga. So I'm a newbie when it comes to manga. I'm not as well versed like I said like Shay and Mama Loves Manga are two really great resources and Brandy gave us another good resource. They're very learning my way around manga, but from my understanding manga, Japanese comics, I mean there's so many different genres of manga out there that I mean the four main categories that I read a lot from, of course, are going to be shonen, seinen, um, shojo, and josei. So those are the four categories that I usually stick to. But there's so much more. So same thing with comics too. Like if you think about it in terms of books, like if you like fantasy or if you like sci-fi or if you like contemporary or if you like slice of life or if you like horror, it's the same type of thing. Like there's so many different genres to pick from that if you're looking for recommendations, think about what genres you like in terms of reading, and that kind of helps. Let's see here. I'm catch up on comments. This is usually and it's a very nuanced conversation. Not everybody in the booktube community it really enjoys um comics and graphic novels like that. I think it's just one of those things where like there's a pocket of us that really enjoy them without jumping into like the comic book side of YouTube, which I can't. Like it gets so tedious. And I watch some of those people and I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm gonna stick to BookTube and just incorporate it into my channel. Yeah. So there is a slight difference between the two. Don't feel guilty. I definitely would recommend Watchmen, and it's crazy because I haven't read Watchmen myself because I'm nervous to read it, but Watchmen is a classic that you'll find that a lot of comic book readers would say needs to be on your repertoire, which I should be ashamed that I have not yet watched it, um, read it, or watched the show. I heard the show is a really good adaptation. And I heard this from people who actually read comics like that. They enjoyed Watchmen as a TV show. But yeah, it's a classic place to start. I think that a lot of what happens with, well, how deep do y'all want me to go? How deep do you want me to go? Because there's a line of DC that ties into Watchmen, which is why I really want to read Watchmen. But I'll explain it. You let me know, Alexis, whether you want to hear that or not. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like it's kind of hard, Leah, and I agree with that. And that's why the conversation can get super confusing because of the fact that when you buy the huge omnibuses of like how Saga has those and they're I mean like they're really big. It's so hard. Um it's so hard to not call them graphic novels. But I think for me, the reason why I look at them as just trades or an omnibus or a bind up, more so than calling it a graphic novel for the sake of causing less confusion, is that I think about how it originally started. It started off as a serialized book. So even though it is bound up, its natural origins were in serial format. Um, but I can see the argument for that. I can see the argument for saying, well, I mean, this feels like if it's bound up in this large omnibus, then is it not a graphic novel? And some people would argue that it is. But I think for me, just word choice in certain situations causes a lot less confusion when people are talking to me about the medium or when people are looking for recommendations. Brandy, you should know this. You should know. You should know. So, um, although this is published by this is considered shoujo beat manga by this media. Nana definitely for me feels more so josei because of the fact that you have and josei for manga is catering to an older audience, although there's some lines in which things can blur, but typically it does cater to an older audience. And this features two women who are, I mean, this is after high school. They're in their 20s, and they are both by the name of Nana. They're both headed to Tokyo for their own individual reasons. And this one definitely is a little bit of romance involved, a little bit of slice of life. There's drama in it, but this and which I talk about all the time. This and Food Wars, two manga series that like got me into even reading manga whatsoever. So I definitely would say Nana, hands down, is definitely one of my favorite titles that I would categorize as josei. Do I have a favorite shoujo title? Um, I mean, you know what's crazy is that I always feel like I don't read a lot of shoujo, but I mean, if you're talking about like classics like Sailor Moon, Fruits Basket, those would probably be in the top there, but there are, I'm sure, a lot more. And I read a lot of older stuff, I think, than a lot of people do. And I read a lot of shonen, believe it or not. Yeah, I'm looking on my shelf. I think that and Kitchen Princess is pretty good too, which I would consider a shoujo title. Child, if you don't give me a genre, give me a genre. Please give me. You got to give me because it. I read manga. I'm a little bit like look at it this way. I'm like a little toddler when it comes to manga. Like I'm still really really learning. When it comes to comics and graphic novels, like literally saying that you're open to anything is like chaos for me because I read so much of it. So like give me three genres, just any three genres that you would like. Okay, so the reason why I want to read Watchmen only because it's like classic like repertoire that everyone says that you should be reading it. On top of that, um, I started reading. So I started reading DC Rebirth. So Alexis, let me look at the rest of these comics and then I'm gonna go. I'm gonna then I'm gonna go to. I'm gonna talk a little bit about Marvel and DC. Okay. Okay. All right. Tammy has some good shoujo titles. Oh, okay. So I have copies of Love Com and Oran High School's Club, which I still haven't read. But it's on my shelf. So shoujo is catered to a younger female audience, but shoujo doesn't necessarily mean that it's just like girly girly either. And I think sometimes that's a misconception. Like my love story is considered shoujo, but it has a male lead, but it's just catered to a younger audience. I don't want to line it up to say like, oh yeah, like children's like YA and then Josei's like new adult because I don't think that's a fair categorization. But I would just say like shoujo is just catered to younger audience. Okay, so let me go back to Alexis. You said you would love to hear it. Okay, so I don't know how many people like read DC Marvel. So DC and Marvel um are two of the biggest names out there when it comes to comic books. And definitely much so in terms um of publishing. They're household names. Everybody knows DC Marvel. I mean, you think about the Marvel franchise, all the movies that had come out. DC's a complete failure when it comes to movies. And I always say Marvel has the market on live action. If you've never watched a DC animated movie, you're missing out because they definitely have a stronghold in that aspect of like the digital like viewing, like movie watching or whatever you want to call it. Um, I started this project this year where I wanted to learn a little bit more about DC and Marvel in terms of like their backlog. Because as a comic book reader, you have to think about the fact that these companies were started, 30s, 40s, 50s. And there's a lot, I mean, a lot of backlog of comics, just characters and um, storylines and different worlds and different, story arcs and things that have been gotten rid of. And it's just all confusing. So, going to understanding why I want to read Watchmen, DC has one of the most complex stories that I've ever seen. DC has such a messed up continuity that it's very, very hard to jump into DC because I believe, if I'm right, because I was watching this with Comics Explained, um, what ended up happening is that when they came out, I think somebody had picked up a story that someone else didn't finish, and I think it had to do with Teen Titans and Wonder Woman. And something happened where Wonder Woman's age got jacked up because it seemed like there was a lack of communication between different writers. And because that got messed up, it messed up the continuity. So what ends up happening is that DC like reboots their lines like crazy in hopes of like restarting to make their continuity make sense. So that's why you saw things like DC New 52, which most comic book readers hate DC New 52. Because DC New 52 did so poorly, they went and they did another reboot, which is DC Rebirth. So DC Rebirth, when it first came out, they published this omnibus that did the first issue of all the major characters that are in DC, as well as like all the major team ups. And I don't want to spoil it because someone may be interested in kind of deep diving and figuring some stuff out for themselves after this. But Watchmen and Rebirth have something to do with each other. So I'm kind of making my way back, looking at some stuff with New 52 because New 52, I mean, not New 52 in general, DC really gets confusing for me when we talk about like Superman and Flash. And when we talk about like what versions of Earth we're dealing with. So I read a comic probably in like September that dealt with Batman and Superman, but it was super confusing. And these were comics that were like pre New 52. So this was kind of like their jumping point for hopping into what they were doing before and hopping then into New 52. And I think it's like 5 or 6 volumes of comics. And I read one that was Batman and Superman, and it was written by Greg Pak. And it was so confusing because it was Batman and Superman from our Earth, and then Batman and Superman from Earth 2. So stuff like that can be super confusing because you're dealing with Batman and Superman, but they're different versions because they're on different Earths. So DC has this thing where they have different planets where each planet may have the same characters by name, but they're different in personality. And when I say characters by name, I mean like their superhero character name, whereas like their human name is different. And the different Earths contain different versions. So like there's an Earth, and I can't remember the number. There's an Earth version in DC where Superman is black and he's the president. It gets so confusing. So when I was reading that one volume, I was seeing two storylines where Batman and Superman were like really, really cool. They were best friends growing up. And I believe that was on Earth 2. And then there was a storyline where it was like DC, I mean, it was Batman and Superman, and they hated each other. And this was on the new 52 Earth. So it's so confusing, but that's a light answer of why like I want to read um Watchmen outside of it, like I said, being like a classic, but also because of the fact that it ties heavily into Rebirth. But before I jump into Rebirth, I feel like I need to catch up on what I missed in New 52 because I think like a few years ago, probably like 2016, I had started picking up a lot of, New 52, especially like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash. I never was a real huge fan of I'm still not a huge fan of Batman. Superman, I think he's just a confusing character because he's just confusing. But I stopped reading it and I started going towards like Image and Dark Horse, which were like more non superhero comics, which is where I found like my comfort zone because I just didn't know where to start. If you're looking for a resource on where to start, depending upon whether you want to do chronological order, whether you want to do character lines, I would check out Comic Book Herald. Comic Book Herald is a genius. He literally, I mean, has broken down everything when it comes to DC and Marvel and will give you explicit reading orders, which is where like I've gotten some of my stuff down. All right, let me stop talking. Let me catch up and look at some comics. Okay. With genre, guys, you guys got to go with genre. Y'all really, really have to go with genre. It's kind of hard for me to say like of all times. Yeah, see, everybody, because I talk about Nana so damn much on this channel, it's ridiculous. No, I still have not watched the movie. I still haven't finished the anime because I still haven't finished the series. I went and I bought the rest of the series in October and now I need to finish it. Going through, going through, going through. Hey, Brit. Okay, so I read a volume of Naruto for a library class I was taking. We all had to read manga for a library class I was taking because manga is very, very big amongst teens, of course, and a lot of teens that I work with love manga. So, yeah, I had to read, and I would Tammy, if you're still here, like, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the big three was the big three in manga was Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece. And I've never read Bleach. I have a volume of One Piece. I started it and never finished it because those three are so long, y'all. Like those are so long. And Hunter x Hunter is another long one. I keep thinking of like these long behind series that like I want to try because I feel like they're just like classics to try. And but they're so freaking long. I think One Piece is like over 80 volumes. Easy. Easy over 80 volumes. Yes, they are. And I think a lot of times like DC does not get enough credit for their animation side because their inability to do live action. I think of course, they made a big hit with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was excellent. I think a lot of people enjoyed that. Aquaman was a big hit, which I always find funny though with Aquaman is that um everybody's like, "Oh, I love Aquaman and da 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 da" because of who's playing Aquaman. But if you read the source work, like Aquaman is probably one of the least respected characters when it comes to like the Justice League. Aquaman is so disrespected. He's like, first of all, I mean, Jason Momoa, chef's kiss, but Aquaman definitely is like blonde. He's not as buffed out as Jason Momoa. And people make fun of him because they're like, oh, your superhero or your superpower is talking to fish. So I always think like it's it's funny. It's funny. Okay. Comments jumped. Give me a second. Yeah. Yeah, I think I definitely want to read it before I decide to watch the adaptation of it. Listen, it is. It's to be honest with you, I don't know if check out Comic Book Herald because it's such a tedious task jumping into DC and Marvel. I actually am doing a project. So I have one thing going with DC, okay, where I'm trying to catch up on the new 52. I don't know how much of their backlog I'm really going to read as far as like going way way back. I had picked up a Wonder. I may do it for like a couple like characters specifically, like Wonder Woman. I just checked out a nonfiction book about Wonder Woman, but I think I want to start at the beginning for Wonder Woman because I'm very invested in her as a character. Same thing with like Harley Quinn. I'm very invested in her as a character. But I think as a whole, I think it's a little bit more difficult with DC because the multiverse and the continuity is so freaking jacked up. Um, but with Marvel, one project that the Comic Book Herald started that I haven't done it in a couple of months and I need to get back on it, but it's very tedious, and I'll explain why it's tedious. Is he had this thing called the Marvelous Year, where he would look at the decades, so starting in the 1960s all the way up to present time. And what he did is for each year of the decade, he would pull out the most iconic issues. And it's great because I have Marvel Unlimited, which is their comic book site, which is $10 a month, which is not bad because you get access to everything. The only catch about it is that you have to, like, let's say a comic was released today, you won't see it on Marvel Unlimited for another 6 months, which in the grand scheme of things, it can be kind of tough, like if you're trying to keep up with new stuff that's currently releasing. But if you're interested in reading backlog stuff, I definitely would recommend trying out Marvel Unlimited. So what he did is he literally put up every single issue that was important to that specific year within that decade. And I'm only on like 1960, I mean 1962 or 1963. And it's a lot because I thought at first it was going to be just like he just picks out 10 issues, but there's some years where there's like 30, 40 issues worth of material. And reading comics back when you had like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee um, and Greg Dipko doing the major parts of any Marvel work, it's very influenced by its time. So the comics that I was reading from like I was reading like the introduction, like the very first issue where like Spider-Man makes his appearance, and you can see how much culture from that time in the 60s influenced how those comics were written. It's very much so around like defeating communism, talking about, like the big red scare. Like it's a lot of that is very much so in those comics because that was what was culturally significant at the time. And it's very interesting to read comics where like I've read the origin story of Spider-Man. I've read Fantastic Four, y'all, they have not done any movie that has done Fantastic Four any freaking justice. Nobody has done anything for Fantastic Four. And it's probably one of the most difficult groups out of Marvel to adapt. But I've read the origin stories of Fantastic Four, um, which is good. Like Fantastic Four, the original Fantastic Four from the 60s is really, really good. Um, I mean, I think I read the origin story of Ant-Man, Thor, and Thor's origin story is very different from what you see like in the movies. Like Thor and Loki were not brothers in the original. Thor wasn't even Thor's origin, like the first time you see Thor on page, Thor actually is a man who accidentally finds Thor's hammer and becomes Thor. And he meets Loki, and the first time he meets Loki, they battle. And he only knows Loki because he knows like the legend of Thor. So it's very interesting, like watching like the Marvel universe be adapted on screen and then reading like the original first appearances of people. I read the origins of the Hulk, which I did not like at all. Like I thought it was just super dry. super, super dry. I thought Ant-Man's origin story was super dry too. But I think that Fantastic Four, for example, just doesn't get enough credit. But you have to decide like how much you really want to read. Like, are you interested in the 60s stuff? Like, are you hardcore, like wanting to get that source material? Or are you in a place where you just kind of want to get, just some general stuff with not that much backstory? Because if that's the case, like I said, like Comic Book Herald really gives you a couple of starting points. You can start like based off of your favorite characters. You can start based off of certain events, like if you want to focus on like Civil War II, whatever you want to do. Um, he can kind of set you up in that. I just am kind of in a hardcore phase right now where I want to read it like issue by issue and see like the origin stories of some of these major characters that have been adapted on screen. And I used to say, because I see Britt's comment here, like I used to say I was a DC girl, and I still am by heart. I think I am still a DC girl. But I think when it comes to accessibility and readability, I think that Marvel kind of has the catch on DC. I think DC's character is a little bit more likable. Um, and I think I think I have a heart for like the Justice, like I really, really like the Justice League, and I really, really like DC's villains, although I mean Marvel has some pretty badass villains too. Um, but I do think like in terms of access, like it's been easier for me to go backwards into like some deep, dark, like I said, like 1960s of Marvel. And DC, it's been a little bit more difficult. It's been a little bit like I picked up a comic from Wonder Woman that I think, and I may be wrong with my dates here, but it had to date back to like the 30s or the 40s. And I was like, I got like 40 pages and I was like, maybe I just need to put this to the side right now because I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. Yeah, it's super vast. And I'm so behind y'all on comments. I apologize. Um, yeah, it's like super vast. Like the Marvel universe is, but so is DC. Like none of these, like any of these old comic book publishers like DC, Marvel, like I mean, honestly, they're huge. They're it's huge. It's huge. Yeah, DC's multiverse is what will screw everybody up because they just couldn't seem to keep their stuff together. It was like, I believe when I watch Comics Explain, and I always have to go back and rewatch his videos because when he does his stuff explain, these videos end up being like 3, 4 hours long. Like, go look him up on YouTube and you can see like when he explains the entire DC multiverse, like I think there's like a 3, 4 hour video. It's super long. And you can see how like they decided to get rid of the multiverse and they got rid of all the versions of Earth. Then they brought them all back, and it's like, and it's understandable because when you're in a company like that and you create such dynamic and memorable characters to, I mean, the world, there everybody can't continue to write the same characters for the rest of their life. It like, you know what I'm saying, like it changes, like different people, it changes hands, and that's with any comic book series. um and with times things change. Like Marvel has made a huge emphasis on making their universe more diverse. Like you have like Miles Morales as Spider-Man, you have Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel, and you wouldn't have seen that 20, 30 years ago. So things change so much and they have to figure out how to incorporate it into stories that like longtime readers are already familiar with, which is definitely super difficult. Yes, yes, the multiverse is okay. So like the multiverses to me are like super, super cool because you get to see like all these different versions, and like it's like, you get to see like dark versions of these characters, you get to see like diverse versions of these characters, but then it's like, how do you keep up? Because like what I said, when I was reading that Greg Pak comic, I promise y'all, like I was Googling as I was reading and looking at reviews and looking at videos because I was like, how did y'all keep up with like, and art plays a big role into this too, because when I was reading that, and I keep going back because it's the best example that I have, I kept going back and looking at stuff because art is such an important aspect of all of this stuff. I mean, the stories are great, but the art, I mean, it's a graphic form of literature. And uh, for me, it's like the art is what moves it and makes it better or makes it worse. And Greg Pak's story was super interesting, but the artwork was just, it was, oh my gosh, it was so hard because there was no differentiation between Superman from New 52, Superman from Earth 2, Batman from New 52, Batman from Earth 2. So when they were all in one panel, you had no idea who was who. And it's like, oh, this is so cool because you get two versions of the same character meeting and interacting, and you get to see their different personalities, and you get to see how like Batman from New 52 interacts with Superman from Earth 2. But like when you look at the panels and you're looking at the artwork, you're like, well, who the hell is who? Like, how do I know who's interacting with who? Like, and from the sometimes even from the dialogue, I was like, well, I don't I don't know who's talking to who. Um, but it was an interesting setup and interesting like insight to what New 52 would be. It is just very, very complicated. Okay, so I got called out on this one time in life because I was like, Batman doesn't have any superpowers. All he has is money and technology. And they're like, do you feel the same way about Iron Man? I don't. I don't feel the same way about Iron Man. Iron Man's origin story, too, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Looking at Iron Man in the 60s as opposed to Iron Man now, so cool, so crazy, so different. Um, yes, essentially Iron Man technology and money, but I find Iron Man's pigheadedness more endearing than Batman's. Batman has some serious trauma that he just never dealt with. He's not my favorite. Not my favorite at all. Um, Slice of life. Hmm. You know, I don't know if I have one. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if I've even read any that you can technically consider slice of life, unless you, I mean, Kitchen Princess, kind of, but then not really. Um, and I don't know if you would consider Orange to be slice of life, but I'm not even a huge fan of Orange. A lot of manga that I read, well, not a slice of life, if you want to count, if you want to throw that in there. A lot of manga that I read is based on food, fantasy, Um, a lot of it's a lot of fantasy. It's a lot of fantasy manga that I read. Yeah, I read a lot of fantasy manga. It's a lot of fantasy and a lot of food, and then you throw Nana in the mix, and that's what you get when it comes to when it comes to manga, which is sad. I really am trying to broaden my horizons, um, and Shay really has become like a goddess for me in terms of recommendations. Like Shay and Mama Loves Manga, like I mean, and Manga Hoarder too. Like I said, those three, like I'm not just saying it to say it, like truly a lot of anything that I've read when it comes to manga has come from them, to be honest. But I don't know if I'm like a huge fan I don't know if I would be a huge fan of Bleach. I don't I can't tell. Tammy, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous because I know how pivotal and important, especially Bleach and Naruto. I think One Piece for me is kind of like I've seen some people who really, really like One Piece, and people are like, yeah, nah, not gonna do it. But like, I feel like Bleach and Naruto are so sacred that I'll be so disappointed if I end up reading them and I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like it. That would be awful. Okay, y'all. I'm catching up on the okay, so here, look, Fruits Baskets is considered slice of life. It is slice of life. And I've read I think like 4 volumes of that. Catching up, y'all. I'm trying to catch up. Yes, thank you for saying that. So you can get the Shonen Jump app on your phone and pay $2 a month, which is a cheap price. It's less than what I pay for Marvel Unlimited. Oh, okay. So Leah, I don't know if you've heard of Oh gosh, I can't even remember the guy's name. Okay, I'm gonna have to Google it, y'all, because um he was like a he fell in love, or Sue was supposedly from Fantastic Four, um, kind of falls in love with this guy, even though she's engaged. And she has this kind of weird relationship with this character. I think he's from Atlantis. Y'all just give me a second here. And he's from Marvel. And it feel Namor. That's his name. Namor. He was the submariner. And he reminds me of like a more like beefed up version of Aquaman. And he's so like I didn't even know he existed until I started reading Fantastic Four, and how um he ends up like really, really pissed. He ends up really, really pissed at the Fantastic Four for like some really, really childish reasons. But watching him interact with Sue, who is she's an invisible girl, was super interesting. And then Submarina and Doctor Doom teamed up. Doctor Doom is hands down one of the best villains of all time, hands down. Because I read an issue of Fantastic Four where I don't think it was the first time we've seen Doctor Doom. I think it was like a time in which Doctor Doom comes back. And like he's one of those villains where you're like, he always comes super, super close to kicking their behinds. And he's the one that has like the most um the most capability to do it. Crazy. But see, like, unless you read like the backlogs log stuff, like you never would know that. And it's so interesting because, like I said, like you watch the adaptations and you don't get that part of Marvel history where that's not Thor's origin. Like all of them, their origin stories are very much so different, I think, than what you see in terms of adaptation, which makes makes sense. Yes, I do like Constantine, and the only reason why I got into Constantine, and I think Constantine is under Vertigo, which Vertigo um, is an imprint of DC. I think he's under Vertigo. I'm pretty sure he is. If I'm wrong, someone correct me. I picked up Constantine after watching Keanu Reeves in an adaptation. Catching up on comments, y'all. Okay. But DC is also really good at their TV shows. Yeah, their TV shows are are very, very good. It is. The multiverse is confusing as hell. They run super, super deep, super, super deep. Hey, yeah, no headband. I actually I retwisted yesterday, so I have no headband on. I don't like Batman. I don't like Batman. Okay, what's my favorite manga in general? Okay, so you may have missed this, but I'll give you a run through. Um, Nana, Food Wars. One that I just started reading that I think is going to become a favorite is definitely going to be The Promised Neverland. Um, let me. Y'all are making me pull like stuff off, like pull stuff off. This is one that I don't know if a lot of people read. Judge is a really, really good one for me. It reminds me a lot of Saw. I don't know if y'all have ever seen the horror movie Saw. Um, and I think doesn't Saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it's some horror movie works like this where like you kind of have to make a decision or I don't know if you have to answer questions or something. I don't know. They trap you and then they threaten to do like really, really horrible things to you. Judges like that, which is it's really good. Um, I think everybody's a fan of Death Note. I feel like everybody and their mama has read Death Note, to be honest with you. I like the classics like Sailor Moon, which I plan to reread. My love story, I think I have to get back into that one because I think I read like 2 volumes of it and I just stopped. But I did enjoy what I read. Um let's see here. Black Butler is another one that I like. I love the anime for Black Butler. Um Assassination Classroom, which I need to continue, but I did like what I read. Kitchen Princess, which I think I have talked about nonstop already. And then one of my favorite thrillers, psychological thrillers, is definitely Monster. So Monster, I really, really love it. I think I've talked about a little bit on my channel. It's about a doctor who saves these set of twins, and one of the twins becomes a serial killer. And yeah, I just have noticed that like I don't read a lot of light stuff in general, like whether it's like traditionally published prose or even in graphic stuff. I really I don't read light and that's weird about me because I'm not a dark person, but I like dark things, which is I don't know what that says. Have any of y'all read Rosario and Vampire? This is good. I enjoyed it when I read it. It gets a little redundant in certain chapters, but I like it. If you're looking for a vampire story, that's an old school one, I think. Brandy, I have Skip Beat. I have a volume of Skip Beat. I still haven't read Yona of the Dawn. I still haven't read High School Debut. I still haven't read or on High School Host Club. I still haven't read Happy Marriage. I still have not read um I still have not read any Junji Ito. I still have not read Gimmick, Hot Hot Gimmick. I still have not read that. I have started a Silent Voice, which is really good. I've talked about this one a little bit. It's about a girl who is she's deaf and she gets bullied by this guy, and it's not coming out. I'm just gonna show you volume, but volume one is not coming out. She gets bullied by this guy in school, and I mean he's awful to her, y'all. It was hard to read it because he was just such a trash person. But it's kind of like a flashback because he's remembering what he did to her and he wants to make amends, but he just doesn't do it when he should have done it. But it's kind of like telling their story, which is really good. But A Silent Voice, that one I really enjoyed the first volume. I still have not read Full Metal Alchemist, but I have the bind up of the first 3 volumes, which is sad. I still can't believe that I haven't read Full Metal Alchemist. Like, I still haven't finished Attack on Titan. So there is a lot of stuff within manga that like I haven't finished yet, y'all. Or haven't started. It's just you mean manga or comics? I don't there's a couple of comics based on food that I don't think um I don't know if you'll like them or not. Let me go into my Goodreads to try to figure it out. If you're talking about manga, the ones that I've read are Nobu, Otherworldly Isekai Nobu, which is this one. I just read the first volume of this one. This one is based on it's like a medieval German town, and this Japanese shop pops up. And it's really interesting because it's like a cross between German and Japanese cuisine, and not so in like the food that's served at the restaurant. It's a cross in the sense that you have individuals that are German that teach you about the German equivalent to Japanese food. And that has been really, really interesting because I'm not familiar with either. So, and then what's cool about this is that in each volume, they give you there's like a kind of like a menu in the back where they explain like the Japanese food items and then also the German food items at the bottom, which I think is really cool. Food War Shokugeki no Soma, probably one that I have like talked about to death. Like, I mean, endlessly talked about to death. And that one is about this boy named Soma who ends up going to this elite Japanese cooking school, and they compete for this. It's like a circle, or it's like 10 people on this. It's not a committee. I don't know how to describe it, but the everyone wants to be on this around the circle because that means that you're one of the best, or you are the best of the best, and they compete by doing what you call a shokugeki, which is kind of like I always say, what's the show from Food Network? Iron Chef. Like if you like the show Iron Chef, like you'll like Food Wars. I have one that I have not read yet, but I don't know. Oh, here it is, which is Miss Kozumi Loves Ramen Noodles, which I think is just literally about a girl who runs a ramen shop. I haven't read that one yet. I have read what is the one y'all with the dad and the little girl, Sweetness and Lightning. I think that's what it's called. I have read that one. I was kind of like, eh. I like the anime, but I was kind of like, I don't know. Kitchen Princess. I'm not gonna have fun putting these shells back together. So, Kitchen Princess is about a young girl who is very, very good at making pastries, and she basically goes to this elite school trying to find this guy who gave her flan when she was having like an emotional breakdown, and then she had like this connection, and it seems really, really like childish, but it's not because I read the first omnibus and I completely fell in love because it was just so deep. It was such a deep, oh gosh, it was super, super deep. Um, Fantasy Rex. I'm guessing this is for comics. Y'all don't kill me for not keeping up with the comments. Okay, fantasy. The Wicked and the Divine. I talk about this one a lot. This is about a group of gods that come every 90 years and live for 2 years, and they reincarnate themselves into the bodies of people who are already living on Earth, and they become these huge like pop icons. And it's super interesting because the gods and goddesses come from so many different backgrounds. Like we're talking like cultures, religions, periods in time. It's very cool, very dark, but if you have never seen the artwork in The Wicked and the Divine, honey, you are missing out. So let me find a panel because when I say the artwork is beautiful, and doing this on like a webcam does not do it justice. But that artwork is very, very beautiful. Okay, so The Wicked and the Divine, um, fantasy, monstrous. I'm not going to do explanations because I'll never answer everybody's questions. Another fantasy, fables. If you've never read fables, if you like story, what is it? If you like story or fairy tale retelling, that's a good one. If you like Sailor Moon and you're looking for a comic book version of Sailor Moon, I would recommend Zodiac Star Force. So there's more. I mean, there's a lot more, but I feel like I'm super behind on comments. I know I'm super big. I know that I'm super behind on comments. Okay, y'all. Let's see. Let's see where I'm at here. Oh, okay. I see y'all. I see y'all. I see y'all. I was not expecting this many comments. Yeah, it's alive. Yeah. This is why I didn't want to do it as a video because I felt like to do this as a video, it wouldn't have worked because it's just so much. Like, I mean, This conversation, you can have this conversation for hours on hours on hours, to be honest with you. You really, really could, because there's so much stuff. Okay. So, the crazy thing about this is that your origin story can start in a multiverse. So, and and sometimes there is no explanation. There is no explanation. So, and it depends on um what reboot or what continuity you're looking at. So, like, for example, with the reboot with New 52, there what really pissed me off about the entryway is that if you had no knowledge of the DC multiverse, it would have been confusing as hell. I mean, there's no way that you would have understood what was going on. So, um, and all characters do not just have one origin story. I feel like origin stories change depending upon the reboot and who's writing it, and what details they admit and what details they keep. So honestly, I don't feel like there's one straight answer to that, because I don't think it's that easy to answer. I think that it's a little bit more complex than that. Yeah, I want to read Doubt too, Brandy. Yeah, the same person did Doubt. Just read it. I'm not going to even tell you what it's about. I'm not going to tell you what it's about. Timmy, is it hard? Like, is it out of print? Is it hard to find? No, I haven't, but I've seen it. And that one's a little bit darker, right? I am. I am. I have slept on a lot of the I think some of the most popular titles to those who read manga. I was just talking about you. I've been talking about you since this live being. I was like, if you really want some recommendations, you need to go to Mama Loves Manga. And here you are. Here you are. Yes, 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 yes. Food Wars is bomb. Is bomb AF. Is super bomb. Yes, okay. So I just checked out a volume of Giant Spider and Me. I'm trying to get over my fear because I have arachnophobia, and I keep looking at the cover and I'm like, do I really want to do this to myself, or am I going to have nightmares? Okay, so Brandy, if you do Fables, okay, Fables is Fables is super long. Okay, I think the volume that I held up. Okay, so this is not even. This is a spinoff. And I think I have most of the. I'm gonna be so pissed having to put this shelf back together, but that's okay. So I'm gonna show you the spinoffs because there's a lot. Okay, I think that's one, two, three, four, five spinoffs. Yeah, and then where's the main? This is the main one. Okay, so if y'all like fairy tale retellings, um, Fables is one of my favorite comic book series of all time. Of all time. It's about this group of fairy tale beings who end up in New York because they're trying to escape the adversary. And you don't know, well, I know who the adversary is because I've read far enough, but you don't know who the adversary is going into it. And you are reading and you learn about the dynamics between the characters. I mean, like, there's Big Bad Wolf, there's Snow White, and there's Cinderella, and some of these characters have some very, very interesting personalities. There's mainstream like fairy tales that you're probably like super familiar with, and then There's characters that are a little bit more on the obscure side, but they are good. Okay. So you have the main series, and this was done by Vertigo, which is Fables. And then you have Fables that focuses on the Big Bad Wolf. Then you have a spin-off Fable series. This takes place, I believe, after the conclusion of the original storyline. And then Cinderella has like a 2-volume arc. And then Ferris is about a couple of the women, I believe, that Snow White, Rose Red, Briar Rose, and Goldilocks. Goldilocks is evil, by the way. And then you have Jack. So, like Jack and the Beanstalk. He has his own volume too. Jack is an asshole. Jack is disgusting. Jack is a schemer. He's a thief. He's a pathological liar. Um, but he's funny. And his storyline is his storyline is crazy. They are coming out with a huge compendium, um, which I think has like a lot of the story arcs. So yes, Fables is a great series. I love Zodiac Star Force. I'm kind of sad that it's 2 volumes. I think I don't haven't seen a third. I haven't seen a third volume at all, which is very very disappointing because it's awesome. Um, let's see here. Thanks for coming, Tammy. It was good to see you. I need more recommendations from you in terms of manga. All right, y'all. Are there any other specific? I know I miss people who ask me for recommendations. So if you have, um, if there's specific genres that you're looking for, I'm not pulling up my Goodreads. I was explaining some stuff and got a little carried away. So ask away if you got them, or I can just chat a little bit more about some that I have read, or if this has been enough, we can cut it short. It's solely up to y'all at this point because I've read on date over, well, since I started reading comics in like 2015, 2016, I think I've read like well over 200. So we can chat, y'all, or I can give you recommendations. Some more fantasy ones that I would recommend that I've read recently. Who said they're a troll? Brit, you're stupid. um, so Brandy, you mean manga and comics or just manga? Because I mean, we could do both. I'll just do both. For manga, ones that I wasn't really sure about that I ended up with. Honestly, like The Promised Neverland, I wasn't sure about that one. And a lot of people were like saying that they loved it, but of course no one was talking about it because of the fact that, I mean, it's like jaw dropping when you figure out what The Promised Neverland is really about. And I didn't know how I was going to feel about it, but I did end up liking it a lot. I mean, a lot because I went out and I bought a lot of volumes of it. I did really end up enjoying Mononoke. I think it's called Mononoke Sharing. I don't know if I'm saying that right. That one, I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. It's about this girl who lives with these creatures that, I mean, they're demons for lack of a better term. I didn't know how I was going to feel about that one, but I really did enjoy that. I'm still on the fence about My Hero Academia. I liked the first volume well enough. I think it was like a 3.5 star read for me. But I think if I keep reading it, I think that's one that I'm going to enjoy more. For comics, recently I read Unnatural, which I talked about a little bit in my October wrap up, which is about this world where like animals can only marry within their own species and it's illegal to have relations with other animals. It it's strange, but I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. I ended up liking that one. Um, the strain was it strain. Um, I really ended up liking that one. Didn't know how I was going to feel about it because it's a little bit darker in terms of well, the cover is kind of off-putting too. The cover makes it look like it's going to be dry and boring, but I really ended up enjoying that one. I think those are two recently that I thought that I didn't know how I was going to feel, but I really did end up liking them. Um, in the past, The Beauty was one. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of The Beauty by Jeremy Hahn. The Beauty is about this. The Beauty is about this sexually transmitted disease that people get, and it makes them spontaneously combust. The premise sounds really, really weird, and I mean, even saying it, it sounds really, really weird, but it's actually good. I really did enjoy The Beauty. Like, I was surprised that I um ended up enjoying that one as much as I did. I actually want to go back and reread that one because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna feel about that. Yeah, I feel like My Hero Academia is super, super hyped. And I mean, while I do enjoy it and I find it um really interesting, I think that the hype kind of I don't know. I don't know if the hype kind of took me out of the frame of mind of being like, yeah, this is like the ultimate series type of thing. The artwork is very intense for me, Brandy. I don't know if you got that feeling with it. Like, um, I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like that about like One Punch Man. I'm very, very nervous to read One Punch Man because of how dense the artwork feels. And it's just a weird experience. And the same thing with My Hero Academia. The artwork was kind of off-putting for me a little bit, but I may pick up the second one and see how I feel about it. Okay, so um, of course, your top ones that you're probably going to hear about when it comes to like POC comics. A lot of people, of course, automatically defect to, which I do too. Um, Black Panther by Ta-Nehisi Coates, Shuri by who did Shuri? Did Nnedi Okorafor do Shuri? I'm pretty sure that she did do Shuri. I believe she's the writer behind that one. Um, I tried to read, and I feel like Brandy, I think you've read this one too. I tried to read I think it's Concrete Park, which is a really different premise where people I think they're prisoners and they end up going to this different planet, but like people are like assassins. It's weird. And I never made it through that one. Another huge one that I really enjoyed, Bitter Root, which the second volume just came out last month. Very, very complex story behind Bitter Root, which I really enjoyed. Um, in terms of like queer, um, I would say that, one of the big ones in the booktube community is definitely Fence. Avant Guards is a really good queer one. I mean, like a lot of good rep in yeah, yeah. I mean, what I'm talking about is these are own voices, and I'm not showing your comment, but yeah, these are own voices. BB Free is another good queer one. I think somebody already put Slam up there. That's another good one. Um, let me think. Bingo Love is another good one, although heard some really interesting things about T. Franklin. But Bingo Love is a really good one that's a queer one. Um, What is the one about the four girls who do they investigate? I'm looking for the title right now. Let me see if I can find the title for you because that's another good one as well. Hold on. Let me see, let me see, let me see, let me see. Oh, Heavy Vinyl um, is another good one as well. The Backstagers is another good one. Um, there's a lot, to be honest with you, a lot more than I think what people think. And I'm scrolling through. But those are good places to start if you're looking for some titles. Yeah, Avant-Gardes is super super good. Concrete Park. Yeah, yeah. You let me know what you think, Brandy, because like I was reading Concrete Park and I was like, and I think I just wasn't. I think I was in a place where I wasn't in the mood for it. Um, but it was. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't. It wasn't hitting a spot for me, to be honest with you. Yeah. Did you know that? Okay, so I found this out last night. So there's Avant-Gardes, which is 2 volumes. Volume 2, I think, came out earlier this year. Then there's an Avant-Garde spinoff, which I didn't know. I found that out last night, which I thought was really really good. Um, I think everybody has read Saga. Everybody's probably like saga'd out by now. If you're looking for a comparison between Fables, which is a fairy tale retelling, Grimm Fairy Tales, which was done by Zenoscope, is another one. Not as good as Bill Willingham's take on fairy tales, but I mean, if you're looking for another alternative, that also is a good one. Um, if you're looking for a little bit more diversity um, in terms of like Marvel, I always would recommend I would recommend Miss Marvel, the run that was done by G. Willow Wilson, which in my opinion is the best run. I mean, that's just me. That's just my opinion. G. Willow Wilson wrote Kamala Khan for I think 10 volumes, and it was so good. It was so so good, so well done. Really enjoyed it. Um, I mean, so good, so so good. I mean, it depends. I mean, Saga is iconic. I mean, it is. I can't tell you how many times it's won the Eisner Award. I think it's won it quite a few times, but it is an iconic um, science fiction comic book series. But also, Brian K. Vaughan is probably one of my favorite comic book writers. Um, he's done The Runaways, he's done Saga, he's done Why the Last Man. He's done Paper Girls, which if you've never read Paper Girls and if you're looking for like a shorter comic book series, because some of these comics can get kind of long. Like, I mean, in terms of like volumes, and comic books are not cheap. So I get it. If you want to start a shorter series, and it's not accessible through your library, I tell people, it's coming full circle. I tell people if you want to read a lot of comics, check out Hoopla with your library because Hoopla carries a lot of comics, both bind ups and single issues, which is really good. Not any manga to my knowledge, but definitely single issues and bind ups of comic book series, which is how I read a lot of my comics because comics are just super expensive. Even secondhand, they can be super expensive. Um, and, you know, space wise, it's a lot to want to collect all that stuff. But I definitely feel like Paper Girls is one of I don't know. I can't say that it's his best work, but if you're looking for something that's shorter, I definitely would check out Paper Girls. It's science fiction, takes place in the 80s. A lot of pop culture references that not overdone, but enough to like make you appreciate 80s pop culture. And the artwork is vibrant, it's beautiful. And because it's science fiction and it deals with time travel, it can be it can be kind of confusing because you see stuff taking taking you see stuff happening. I don't know what I was trying to say. You see stuff happening in the present, but also stuff in the future. And I think by the time you get to like volume 4, everything is made crystal clear. But definitely short series is one that I finished this year that I really enjoyed. I didn't know there were comics on Scrib. That's news to me. I don't have Scrib, but that's good. I didn't know there were audiobooks of Wilson's work at all, but I love her run. It's so powerful. And I love that just the um I'm a huge fan of like social commentary and anything that I read because that's just me, that's my personality. And the stuff that she covers in those volumes is just super powerful. I think if you're a fan of, and I'm just going through now, y'all, of like some stuff that I read just to kind of give you an idea. If you're a fan of The Walking Dead, but you don't want to read The Walking Dead, Revival by Tim Seeley is another good one where people have died and they come back to life. Really interesting story there, but I really enjoyed it. See you later, Britt. Thanks for coming, love. I haven't read it yet. But I feel like I'm probably gonna have my feelings hurt. Good night, good night, good night. Um, yeah, Revival is a good one for that. If you're looking for more assassins, I think that Deadly Class by Rick Remender, and Deadly Class has been, I think, turned into a TV show. I haven't seen it. Britt, you can leave me alone with that bacon. Um, I haven't seen it, but Deadly Class is an 80s assassins dark comic. It's good, but just be prepared for that. But that's one that I did like. If you're looking for another fantasy, The Unwritten by Mark Carey and I think Peter Gross or Gross, I never know how to say his last name. That is an interesting one because it's a play on literature itself, and it's really fascinating. Hey Chloe, hey Bree. Um Bitch Planet was really good. I think Bitch Planet only has 2 volumes, which is super unfortunate because I really enjoyed Bitch Planet. That's definitely huge commentary on feminism. So if you're interested in that, I would check out Bitch Planet. Alex and Ada, done by Jonathan Luna, is I think I have a copy of that one. I do. Okay. So Alex and Ada is science fiction. It is basically about a guy who ends up falling in love with an android, for lack of a better term. And I'm gonna have to switch this view around, y'all, because my battery is dying. But if you like science fiction, um, I definitely would recommend trying that one out. If you like the AI type of romance going on, and it's not espionage per se, they're kind of running from the government because the government has made some decisions about AI. So that's a good one, Alex and Ada. Jonathan Luna and I believe his brother did another one called Girls, which is sci-fi too, but it's nasty. It's these girls who come to Earth and they have sex with men and then they replicate themselves by laying eggs. It's really gross, but it's very reminiscent. I mean, Jonathan Luna and his brother have a very distinct way of how their artwork looks. It looks very much so like computer animation. Trying to find, you can see like a panel. So I don't know how well y'all can really even see that, but it's very much so like computer animation type of style, very distinctive. All of their work looks exactly the same, without a doubt. Um, let's see, horror. I would recommend Lock and Key easily. The TV show for me is just it didn't do it any justice. Lock and Key, the actual comic book, is really so the TV show, in my opinion, is like really cute and fluffy, and the actual comic book is really dark and gross. It's super dark and gross. If you're looking for one that this is more of a graphic novel than a comic book series, and it's Aya. I think Bree, you were reading that one, which um, is really good. I think that one has like 3 or 4 volumes to it. Yes, I have heard of Abbott. I have Abbott marked as a favorite on um, on Hoopla. I just have not read it yet. Yeah, so I've heard that his novels are really. I actually have a copy of Nosferatu by him, but he just had a new comic book series kind of come out. Um, that's all horror based too, but I think it's done by like multiple authors. Uh, do, 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 do. Yes. I have read Giant Days. I got up to probably volume 5 or 6 of Giant Days, I think, and I haven't read it in such a long time. I kind of forgot a lot about it, to be honest with you. But Giant Days is very slice of life and very interesting. I like Giant Days. I think it was done very well. I know that it's coming to an end though. I mean, the last volume comes out this year, and they're kind of done with the series. Which I mean, they've had a pretty decent run with Giant Days. Um, Sex Criminals, very interesting, done by Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky. It's about 2 characters who stop time when they have sex and they have orgasm. It's good. I know it probably sounds weird, but it's really good. Um, so I mean, I can keep going with recommendations, y'all, unless anybody has any specific recommendations, or I may just kind of call it. We've been going for like we've been going for an hour and a half now. So, like I said, I mean, I really literally can talk all night, but I cannot literally talk all night. I can't literally sit here and talk all night. But I would just say like if you are whatever you're interested in checking out, whether that's graphic novels, whether that's manga, or whether that's comics, whatever, I definitely would try to find things based off of what genres you're interested in. Because I really didn't even talk about the publishing side of comics, like how you have Marvel, which people are really familiar with. DC, people are very familiar with DC. But then you have stuff like Image, you have Dark Horse, you have Zenescope. And when I think of like Vertigo, like I said, it's an imprint, but I think IDW, which is another, it's another one. But I think that for me, I usually am sticking to a lot of either Marvel, DC, Image, um, Boombox, or Boom Studios. I think they changed their name to Boom Studios. Boom Studios is really good. They produce a lot of funny comics, a lot more in terms of like art wise. They're a lot brighter than a lot of comics that I've read. But I really do like Boom Studios. They are the ones that are responsible for like avant gardes and stuff. So I really enjoy them. But I wouldn't really get into all of the I wouldn't get into all of the nuance aspects of it unless like you're super interested because it's a lot to keep up with. It's a lot of stuff to keep up with in terms of trying to find what you like. But I think the best recommendation I can give is just go with your genre. And if you Google like fantasy comics or fantasy graphic novels, you'll get stuff that'll pop up. And I mean, there was just so much, like, yeah, we didn't even talk about like middle grade graphic novels or nonfiction graphic novels, which I'm reading quite a few nonfiction graphic novels. There are a lot of nonfiction graphic novels out there that are really, really great. Um, like Persepolis and oh yeah, First Second is another good one too. Sorry. Um, First Second is another good one. Archie, technically, Archie Comics is its own publishing group as well, and I read a lot of that stuff. Um, so like for nonfiction, I mean, Persepolis is a good one if you're looking at the Iranian Revolution that took place in the 70s. My Friend Dahmer, which I read last year, which was really interesting insight to Jeffrey Dahmer's life. I mean, it wasn't, it's kind of on the, that one is just interesting. Let's just put it that way, looking at Jeffrey Dahmer's life. One that I'm reading now is it's one that I checked out by accident. I didn't mean to check it out. I was looking for another title. And that one is about a young girl who is becoming a caretaker for her grandparents, and it has this great discussion about what it means to be a caretaker. That one's a really good nonfiction one. Almost American Girl by Robin Ha is one of the best nonfiction memoirs that I have read because I think that it really gave a good insight to um, what the experience was like for Robin, specifically coming from South Korea and then um, going to Alabama and the racism that she faced. Genderqueer was not my favorite because of the ending, but I think that it is a good nonfiction graphic novel for people to read. I Was Their American Dream is also another good nonfiction graphic memoir um, about a girl. I believe that she is both Egyptian and Filipino. I believe I believe that's how she identifies. And it's about the cultural cross sections of identifying as both. So, I mean, goodness gracious, y'all, there's the amount of stuff that you can possibly read is ridiculous. When we think about like middle grade and YA, middle grade has the market on graphic novels. Um, there's New Kid, which I haven't read yet. American Born Chinese, I have read, but I think I would classify that more towards a YA audience. Raina Telgemeier has it's Shannon Hale and Raina Telgemeier both have the market on middle grade graphic novels, um, which I mean I understand right. Raina Telgemeier is the author behind like Guts. Um, she's also done Smile. She's done Ghost. Cece Bell has done a great middle grade graphic novel called El Defo, which is about her experience growing up as deaf or hard of hearing. Um, Shannon Hale does a lot with um, with talking about like middle school experiences. She did one that I read this year called New Friends, where it talks about the experience in like middle school of having friends and then you lose your friends. And it's not because people start disliking each other, but you just grow apart. She does a very, very good job um, about kind of capturing the middle grade experience. Victoria Jameson is another big name in middle grade graphic novels. And the one that I have read from her was Roller Girl. Roller Girl was really, really good. It's about roller derby. And that kind of looks at the relationship between middle grade kids and whether they get along or not. So when I say that, when I say that there's a lot, y'all. I mean, there's a lot. Um, Trying to think here. DC now has an imprint where they have this. Um, I don't want to say it's an imprint, but it almost is an imprint. It's called DC Zoom, where they take DC characters that have traditionally been written for older audiences and they scale them back for a middle grade audience. Excuse me. So the ones that I have read have been about like Wonder Woman when she was younger, when she was Princess Diana. I've read I'm trying to think Swamp Thing, his kind of scaled back version. I have a scaled back version of Justice League, scaled back version of Batman, but they do write those for middle grade. Um, they do write this for a middle grade audience. Then they also have a line that's coming out for YA. So there is one that I read that was Wonder Woman Tempest, and that one I believe was done. Who wrote Wonder Woman Tempest? I can't remember who exactly wrote it, y'all. I apologize off the top of my head. I can't remember. But that one was done, and it was a reimagining of Wonder Woman as a refugee. I don't think she was a Syrian refugee, but she was just a refugee coming to America, trying to navigate America and um, fight for better treatment of refugees just around the world. It very, very important book. And then I just from DC, I received a copy of the YA version of Swamp Thing. So I've read the DC Zoom version, which is for middle grade audience, and then the YA version of Swamp Thing, which is written by Maggie Stiefvater. So when I say that, when I say that I can get into it and get into it and get into it and it be super um and it be super intense, I really mean that. Because then um outside of YA, and I'm gonna catch up on the comments in a second, y'all. I apologize. Outside of YA and middle grade, you also have more children graphic novels. So I would probably consider um, mm, Victoria. I lied. Victoria Jamieson has done another one, and it's a series, but I haven't read it. But I mean, I haven't read the rest of it. I read the first one, and it's about these school pets, literally like a guinea pig, like gerbil type creature that uh that the kids keep in the classroom, and they all try to escape their classroom. She's done that one for kids. Um, there, the OK Witch, I wouldn't say the if you're looking for a witchy book, there's two. If you're looking for a witchy book that is based more on diversity, I would say The OK Witch is a good one. It's not own voices, but it has great diversity in it. And then Witch Boy is another one that has really, really good diversity in it in terms of like spooky books for like a children's kind of verging on a middle grade audience. DC also has a children's line. So they have DC Zoom and then they have their YA stuff. And then they have DC Supergirls, which, the TV show actually is not that bad. It's on Netflix, I think, where they take like a kiddie version of that's wrong for me to say kiddie version, but DC superhero girls. But it is. It's like I think we're like in an elementary school, middle school tops, which I mean, and they're really, really small, very, very thin, short panel work and everything. And they're great. Seriously great. All right. Catching up on comments. I apologize. I apologize. Okay, I saw this. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Yanni, you did. I mean, any questions, of course, willing to answer. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning. Yeah, First Second does a lot of stuff for kids. Um, First Second does a lot of stuff for like middle grade YA. But I don't feel like they get talked about a lot because First Second is not a big publishing house. Like these we have DC, Marvel, and Image up there. It's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to do that. Yeah, so I haven't talked about webcomics, which is another another aspect of reading any type of graphic work. Um, I'm trying to get more into. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm well versed in webcomics because I'm not. I'm trying to get into more of them. I think the most I've read is like some panels of Space Boy. Of course, I read Heartstopper. I read a lot of Heartstopper a as a web comic, but I do have webtoons on my phone. I just need to use it more. I need to use it a lot more. Library. Uh, it's a. I appreciate the compliment. Um, when you work in a library, honestly, that's your brain becomes like its own personal catalog. You catalog stuff. It's very very weird. Yeah, it's strange. It's very very strange. Yeah, I want to read Hey Kiddo this month. I'm hoping that I get to Hey Kiddo because it's supposed to be very very good. And we were debating using Hey Kiddo or New Kid for a program that we do with our teens and our kids during the summer. It's like this book battle. We always make sure that we choose a graphic novel or a comic book as one of the source pieces. And Hey Kiddo, we went back and forth about Hey Kiddo because of content and trying to figure out um, how parents would adapt to us using Hey Kiddo. But yeah, y'all. I mean, it's it's so much stuff. There's so much. There's so many comics out there that there's no way that you would ever run short of different things to check out or read or become invested in. And of course, all of it's not good. It's a trial by fire. I don't want to say trial by fire. That's the wrong word to use. It's you really do just have to try stuff out. Um, Artwork can be a good indication of whether you want to try something or not. Um, Genre, like I said, is a good indication. Or if you're just, you're fans of older stuff, like Archie. Archie has so much. Archie comics is its own thing, y'all. And Archie is, oh my gosh. So Archie itself went through a reboot in 2015 that was done by Mark Waid, and it was a good run. I think Mark Waid gave that. I think he gave that 6 volumes, and I feel like Matt Fraction actually picked up. He picked it up after that. But if you're a fan of Archie, I definitely would check out Mark Waid's run. I haven't read if it's Matt Fraction who picked it up. I have not picked it up like after Mark Waid's run. Um, Jughead, of course, and it's crazy because now, like talking going into like 2020, um, a lot of people are rebooting certain characters within the Archie universe. So Jughead has his own run. Um, and then, of course, there's Archie, and then you have Veronica and Betty have had a couple of things. And then they do these mashups with Archie, like Archie versus Predator, which, like, Predator as in like Alien versus Predator. That one was super weird, but it was good. But it was super weird because it was, I mean, Archie comics and then Predator. Um, I read one that was Archie, I mean, it was Betty and Veronica meet Harley and Ivy. That one was really unique. I mean, super, super unique because I love Harley Quinn. Her story was so twisted, and she fell for the bad boy. But Harley Quinn is one of my favorite DC characters, and the relationship between Harley and Ivy is very interesting. Um, but they do a mashup there. I think at one point Archie meets Kiss, like the band Kiss. I haven't read that one, but that seemed intriguing. And then Sabrina is tied into Archie in some aspects. and then Josie and the Pussycats, they have their own run within Archie. So Archie itself too can get very very complex too. But I overall generally like I enjoyed Archie, old Archie comics. You know, I don't. I don't remember, and it's sad because I think I've read so much now where like I I don't remember what my first comic or graphic novel was. I remember I can tell you based off of where I was working. I was working for the library. I didn't read comics or graphic novels or manga. Actually, okay. So I can kind of give you time frame and maybe around what I was reading. So I was working for or maybe I picked up manga first. I'm not sure how that went. No, I didn't pick up manga first. I picked up manga afterwards. I probably started reading comics and graphic novels in like 2015. I don't remember it being a thing in 2014 because 2014 is when I really got into BookTube, when I discovered Goodreads and stuff like that. And I don't remember necessarily picking up. Um, no, I didn't. I can tell you 99% sure I didn't. So 2015, I did. And around that time, I was probably reading Aya and was picking up a little bit of DC New 52. I think that's what it was. Manga wise, I remember picking up Nana because I watched the anime first. And this is when Nana was available still on Hulu. I remember watching the anime for Nana, and then I went to Books a Million to the manga section. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. And um, I remember seeing the cover for Food Wars, and Food Wars had just recently come out. Well, it was just being serialized here in the United States, translated by Viz. And I was like, okay. And I had a little bit of like, I was familiar with the concept of manga anime because I grew up watching Sailor Moon, which I think a lot of us did that were, 90s kids grew up a lot of us watching Sailor Moon. Um, but I never picked up a manga. So my first mangas were Food Wars and Nana, which is why I probably have such a deep attachment to them because of the fact that I those are my first. And I was going through a very, very dark period when I first read Nana and Food Wars. So because those were like my guiding lights in a time where I emotionally was just, I mean, I had a severe emotional low. I think I just have such a strong attachment to those two. So it's amazing. I can remember what my first manga was, but comic book wise, I can't really remember. But it's amazing, like when your emotional highs and lows can really help you remember like what you build an attachment to. So yeah. Yeah, and Yanni, when I what's so weird is like when I look on Hoopla to look at like Archie and just Archie comics and stuff like that, like I mean, we're talking like issues like into the 700s. Archie has been around for so long. I mean, I wouldn't even try to do backlog of Archie, to be honest with you. And a lot of times I feel like, and this is probably an unpopular opinion, I don't feel like Riverdale does it justice. But that could just be me. I don't know how y'all feel about Riverdale, but I think I watched like the first season. It just didn't capture. They made Riverdale a lot darker than what Archie is, from what I've read. It's not that Archie doesn't deal with tough things, but I feel like Riverdale is like super dark, and the actual comics are not dark like that. Yeah, I wonder if did you read it in the little booklets, or did you read it like as like a comic strip? Yeah, I remember the animated series of Sabrina. Listen, we had this full-blown discussion on like getting into DC and Marvel, how freaking complicated that is, how super, super complicated that is, but definitely like well worth it. Um, because I mean, it's just so it's so rich. It's so rich into history. So rich in comic book history. Everybody's read everybody has read Bleach except me, y'all. I still have not read Bleach. I have not read Bleach at all. And now I feel like I think I actually have Bleach shut out from the library right now. I'm pretty sure I have a copy of Bleach. Now it makes me feel like I just want to read it. Yeah, the new Archie comics to me are like really, really good. Like I really do enjoy Mark Waid's version of Archie. I think he did a nice job. I mean, I don't know, forget who does the artwork on it, but I just storyline itself, I really enjoy it, especially like um if you're not as familiar um with just Archie comics, Riverdale you know, as a history, like if you're not familiar with the history behind it, I think that Mark Waid's run is like a really good jumping point and to like jump into Archie because that was my first time really, really getting into Archie like that. I mean, like I'd heard of Archie and Betty and Veronica, like I knew names, had heard of it, but I never really read the originals. So for me to jump in not having any serious prior knowledge, it was a good starting point. But Riverdale was like was like this is not a true portrayal of Riverdale. Like it was so dang dark. Did you ever watch y'all remember like the old 90s cartoons with like X-Men, like the old X-Men cartoons? I used to love watching old X-Men. X-Men is probably an aspect of Marvel that I really, really love, but it's interesting to see how um like on screen wise, it's so hard for them to adapt X-Men because X-Men, I believe, is supposed to play a role into all of the, um, MCU, but because of rights, they can't incorporate them, which is sad because I believe by the time that I get to 1964 in my read of just the single issues of Marvel, I think X-Men make an appearance by 63 or 64. I think I think that's the right date. I could be off by a couple of years, but just to know like how pivotal they are to the entire um how pivotal they are to the entire Marvel universe and to know that that can't happen on screen is very interesting. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I kind of want to go back and read the old ones. I just don't know where to start. So, Yanni, if you have any suggestions, let me know. Okay, Brandy, good. Like I feel like I'm the last human on earth to not have read Bleach, but I mean I also haven't read One Piece either, so hey. And I've only read one volume of Naruto. Okay. I remember seeing Sonic the Hedgehog comics, but I've never read it. But I do like Is there a movie adaptation of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or am I bugging? I feel like I'm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like a lot of people are like, no, when it comes to Riverdale. I feel like a lot of people are like, no, no, Riverdale's just not. Riverdale is just not that great. And I don't I really don't like you said, like I watched the first season and I really enjoyed the first season. I thought the first season was decent, especially like the ending when you kind of figure out like what happens and stuff like that. But I just didn't have any interest after that. I was like, I don't really care. Okay. It jumped. It jumped. It jumped. Calvin and Hobbes. I see those at the library now in a bind up. I've never read Calvin and Hobbes, which is crazy. And I still, Leah, don't kill me. Don't kill me, Leah. I still haven't read Sandman either. Still haven't read Sandman, which is bad. Yes, the old X-Men cartoon is my jam. It's so good, and it's available on whatever their platform is. So I was watching a few episodes a while ago, and it was really really enjoyable. You're welcome. So I got to about volume 4 of The Walking Dead, and I just haven't had the inclination to go back and pick it up. And I'm not sure what that is, but I guess because it's just the idea of having to go through all of those volumes. So I may see if my library just has the big compendiums. I think there's 3 compendiums. What I may do is check out the compendiums and just read those. And Walking Dead for me is so interesting because the whole thing is done in black and white. Well, what I've read it has been done in black and white, which is I'm used to doing because manga is in black and white. But I'm so used to reading comics in color that it was a little off-putting when I first read it. And I was like, dang, I'm not used to reading this in black and white. But um, I think the length of the series. Does anybody know has The Walking Dead is the serialization finished? Does anybody know that by chance? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think I haven't read a lot of the big hitters. Like I've read some of them, like reading like Attack on Titan, which is not older, but it's one of the most popular ones. But I seem to have this habit where I read one volume and then like I won't read anything else. So on Attack on Titan, I only read one volume. Um, Black Butler, one volume. Naruto, one volume. And I just can't seem to get past like I need to finish Death Note this year. I read 4 volumes of Death Note, and I still have not finished Death Note, but I think that Death Note is one of those series that is a gateway or entryway into reading manga, and I haven't done it. Um, Still haven't finished Fruits Basket. I think that's one of the iconic ones that I haven't finished. Sailor Moon, definitely iconic. Old school. Everybody enjoys Sailor Moon. I think I've only read up to like volume 4 or 5 of Sailor Moon, so I don't know why you do that. It's a really weird thing, but it's really, really weird. Okay, I thought it was the movie. Tintin, classic. That is a classic. I am still on. I, I think I was supposed to stop this like 2 times, and I just haven't done it yet. Death, the high cost of living. I've never heard of that, and it's Neil Gaiman. Okay, not surprised. Neil Gaiman crosses over into so many different mediums of literature. Yeah, yeah, Leah. I know. I haven't done Sandman or Calvin and Hobbes. Seen both. Haven't read them. And I don't know what's stopping me because all of Sandman is available on Hoopla for my library, and I can't figure out what about it is like just making me stop and not pick it up. I've never watched it. I've never watched it because I wanted to get through a lot of the comic before I watch it, but then I heard that they don't follow the comic like that. So I don't know. I don't know if I really have any interest in watching this show, to be honest. My parents were really, really big fans of it, but mhm. I wish the comments would stop jumping. Yeah, I like Black Butler. It's dark. I said earlier, Yanni, I don't know if you missed it or not. And I was like, I like a lot of dark stuff. I like dark manga, I like dark comics, and Black Butler is like dark, but like I feel like dark sense of humor type of situation. And I think I started reading Black Butler because I had watched the anime first. So I used to run the anime club at one of the other locations that I used to work at, and we were watching some wild stuff. Oh, like Ancient Magus Bride is another one that we watched the anime, started reading it, enjoy it. Although I think a lot of people have issues with like the age gap in that one, but I really liked it. I thought it was enjoyable. See, that's what I'm afraid of. Is like it's gonna get redundant. And Brandy, I don't know if you feel this way, but Food Wars somewhere in like this, I don't know if it was the second arc, but kind of like in the middle, like around like volumes like 18 to 20 something, like I felt like it got a little repetitive. And that also bothers me about a lot of comics, graphic novels, or whatever. Like if it's repetitive, I get nervous. Mm. I was gifted the all-in-one edition, which I think is, as a matter of fact, hold on, let me get it. So let's open it and see what it actually looks like. Because somebody had commented and they expected it to be bigger. And I low key did too. So this is the all-in-one edition for Death Note. And I hadn't opened it yet. It's in a slipcase. And it's crazy because you know you have the Death Note, the single volumes, and then you have the black editions, which are I think two volumes in one, and then they came out with this all-in-one edition, which is nice. Okay, well, this bad boy is thick. Okay, yeah, but the pages are like they're like super super thin. They're like Bible thin pages. Yeah, they would have to be Bible thin pages, and this is going to be interesting to read because it's just super thick and it's close to, if not over, it's over 2,000 pages. But the pages are really, really thin. So we'll see how I feel about this one. It's nice though. It's really, really nice. I've heard of Gray Man because I've seen like manga tubers have it on their shelves, but I have never read Gray Man before. And this is, let's see if this will go back in, y'all. I don't think this is gonna go back in the flip case. I don't want to damage the pages either. There we go. Okay. I heard that Hunter x Hunter or the anime is really good. I Hunter x Hunter. I wonder if it came off of hiatus. I know Hunter x Hunter went on hiatus, but I think it was started again. But that's another long one. Hunter x Hunter's long as hell. Kill shapes and KK demons. No, I haven't. That is interesting. No, I have never heard of that. I mean, you can try Happy Sugar Life. Okay, Brittany, I think I saw your. I've been so behind on watching videos, by the way, everybody. I feel like I saw your thumbnail. It looks so. Maybe I'm confusing with another video, but doesn't the cover? Is the cover like bright colors? I wonder if it is. The human form is present. Whether she can be without knowing anything about Sandman. Does it fit? Does it tie into the Sandman world at all, though? Or it no or no? I would like always have a Goodreads tab open when I talk. Let's see. Wars. Yeah, yeah. I think the concept of it is repetitive. I was reading some articles about it ending, and people were saying that it was time for it to end because of the fact that it is super repetitive in its. I mean, in its nature. I mean, it's just super repetitive because, like you said, the concept of it is repetitive. The constant shokugekis is like, mm, I like them and it's great, like the first 15 volumes, and then it's like, how many different ways can you have a shokugeki? It's good, Kathleen. I did 4 volumes of it. I just never finished it, but it's good. Um, I really don't know because I haven't read them, but I would not read them until after you've watched the entire TV show because, from my understanding, like the Buffy comics and Angel comics, they are spin-offs of the TV show. So that means that in order for you not to be spoiled or to have a better understanding of what's going on, you would have needed to watch the TV show first. And that's the reason why I haven't read the comics because I haven't finished the TV show yet. Thank you for coming. Ooh, Blaine, how are you liking Vagabond? Is Vagabond based off of is that's not the one that's based off of, like, it looks like it's Norse or Vikings? I was gonna say Norse mythology, but it looked like I'm thinking the cover blue, the first volume is blue, and it looks like it's Viking stuff on the front. That's another thing too about being a librarian, y'all, is that you remember covers. It's like you take snapshots of covers and you remember the covers. Very, very weird, even if you haven't read something. Okay. I now I'm asking you questions because I'm curious. I want to know if you know the answer to this. How expansive is the Sandman universe? Is it just like Neil Gaiman, or are there other spin-offs of the Sandman universe that maybe Neil Gaiman has done in addition to other writers? Because I feel like I've heard that there is that as specifically, I feel like I heard that Nala Hopkinson did a I don't want to say spin-off, but she wrote The Whispers, which is 3 volumes, which I believe is within the Sandman universe. I'm not sure. Okay. See, yeah, I haven't explored much of that, which is sad. I need to read, I really need to read Sandman. Maybe I need to pick up a volume of Sandman this month. Maybe I should go on Hoopla and see if um if there is a volume. Okay, y'all. So I'm gonna do like 10 more minutes. So if you have any questions, let me know. And in those 10 minutes, I'm going to spit off some more recommendations. So if you want more recommendations, um, let me know. Yes, I've heard of The Way of the House Husband. I actually have that sitting in a shopping cart right now because I'm trying to decide whether I want. Well, I'm gonna have. If I want to read it, I'm gonna have to get it because my library only has volume 4 of The Way of the House Husband, which is very disappointing. But I'm trying to decide. I'm looking at a couple more reviews and seeing if I want to make that investment or not. Um, no, I've never heard of Demon by Jason Shiga. Never heard of it. Is it good though? I'm always worth trying something out. All right, so some more recommendations before we go. Scrolling to the top of my Goodreads, and I don't really like recommending stuff that I haven't enjoyed, but it's so hard because I don't want to stop anyone from reading something that they may actually enjoy. So Go Sit in LA is one that I just read. And Go Sit in LA is about a young woman who goes to LA to follow her boyfriend, and her boyfriend breaks up with her. But she ends up living in this house, um, and when she's living in this house, it's populated by ghosts. I have to read more of that one. I'm not sure how I feel about it just yet, but I think it has potential to be good. And Yanni, thank you. Um, Thinking Vinland Saga. Thank you. I was gonna say, is that the right one? No, Vinland Saga is the right one. Something is Killing the Children is one that was done this year. That's really good. Brandy, I think, read Something is Killing the Children as well. It's about this um, this creature that's actually killing kids in this town, and people think it's just abductions happening, but it actually is an evil being, a monster. Spell on Wheels was cute. I don't think it's gonna have another volume. Um, it probably got. Oh no, 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 no! It is, y'all. Okay, so Spell on Wheels. If you like witches, um, they got their belongings stolen and they're tracking them down, but they're a really cute trio. I really enjoyed them. It's been 3 years since the first volume came out, so I thought maybe that they just had canceled, but the second volume comes out in December. So that's good. Ice Cream Man is an interesting series done by W. Maxwell Prince. It is told in like vignettes. Um, Really, really strange because it's an ice cream man. Literally, it's an ice cream man. But I think that the actual ice cream man is the devil. And whenever he's around, bad things happen to people. And it's like I said, it's like vignettes, but some way, somehow, like all the stories are connected together. Um, but I it's kind of a little on the confusing side because there's a lack of clarity in the first couple of volumes. But that's one, like if you're into horror, I would recommend that one. DC Comics Bombshells is good if you're looking at like World War II versions of some of their lead female superheroes. Lady Killer by Joelle Jones is a 1950s housewife that is an assassin. Craziest concept, but great concept. Really, really great concept. Trying to follow the comments too as y'all. Yeah, Spelling Wheels is the artwork is kind of varied, but the storyline is pretty good. Um, I definitely would recommend to keep going with it if you can get past the art kind of thing. Okay, Go Sit in LA is on my TBR. That one, I have to see with that one. I have to see how I feel. Brave Chef Brianna is a gem. I think that one was done by Boom Studios. And it's about a girl trying to form or make it in cooking in a monster city. That was really good. I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young is probably the most hilarious comic that I've ever read. It is not for kids. I thought that it was like a kiddie comic. I Hate Fairyland is not a kiddie comic. It is about this 30 something, I think she's 37-year old woman stuck in the body of a 7 or 8 year old. And she is vulgar. The first page before you even get to like the actual story and the panels is her sticking her middle fingers up at the reader. But I love I Hate Fairyland. Um, like love, love, love I Hate Fairyland. RD, I'm going through recommendations now. Morning Glories is um Morning Glories is good, but Morning Glories is very strange. If you're looking for something that takes place at a boarding school, it's these kids that go to a boarding school. Their parents know that they're going to the school. When the parents drop them off, their parents forget that they even existed. That one can get kind of confusing, but I heard that that's one that you kind of got to stick with. Preacher um, is a classic one. Um, Faith is okay. Um, it's about a plus size superhero, which is great. Yeah, I Hate Fairyland Brandy is really, really good. That is hilarious. And I think I Hate Fairyland was only 4 volumes, but it was Scotty Young did such a great job with I Hate Fairyland. Very, very unexpected one that I enjoyed. No, Yanni, I did not finish Uzumaki. I started reading it at night and it grossed me out. And I have not picked it up since. Like it made me itch type of situation. So I will find my way back to it. Goldie Vance is another Goldie Vance is another kind of like mystery, slice of life type comic that I really enjoyed. Um, I think its run was only 3 or 4 volumes. Hey Shay, I was talking about you earlier. I was telling everybody if they need manga recommendations that you were the powerhouse to go to in terms of Rex because I'm like a toddler newbie when it comes to manga, but you are like the end all be all. Yeah, Uzumaki is insane, man. I mean, people told me that Uzumaki was insane, but like, listen, I don't know if I didn't believe people or if I was like people were just running out and people are exaggerating. But I literally got like 20 or 30 pages into it, and I was like, yeah, this can't happen at night because this is not this is not gonna work at night. Um, Another science fiction one, The Woods. Um, it's crazy because James Tinney in the fourth has done The Woods, he's done Backstagers, and he's done Something is Killing the Children. And all three of those are so significantly different um, from each other. Shay, you are, because I get most of my recommendations from you. So, yeah, a lot of stuff. I went, as a matter of fact, I'm not gonna even lie. This is probably weird. I went through your Goodreads the other day, which you've read this year, and it was some series that I had checked out that you had read this year. That I went and got from the library because it looked interesting. So I get a lot of stuff from you. Yanni, I know probably haven't gotten to the insane parts yet, but listen, let me tell you, like, I mean, I knew that it was gonna be about an obsession with spirals, but I think that actually seeing these spirals on page and watching people go through like starting to notice the spirals themselves, I was like, oh my, it was driving me crazy. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Um, Can't read of them not. I heard a lot. Never pay attention to various titles. Leah, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna have to look up like the Sandman world, the universe of Sandman, because I feel like it's a lot. I feel like there's a lot going on there that I don't know. Um, People like Gotham Academy. My throat hurts. Gotham Academy did a pairing with I'm gonna say pairing, but it did the mashup between them and Lumberjanes, and Lumberjanes has had such a long run. I think Lumberjanes is 14 volumes, which I think I only made it to volume 3 in Lumberjanes, but we kind of classify Lumberjanes as middle grade. If you're looking for another middle grade series to check out, Gotham Academy is not my favorite. I think that it started strong, and then when they did Gotham Academy's second semester, it was trash. I personally didn't like it. Why the Last Man by Brian K. Vaughan, also another good one. Um, it is about the last man on Earth, and him and his monkey are are the last men on Earth. In very interesting. Jen and the Holograms does have a comic book adaptation. Chew, I've talked about on my channel before. And Chew is about a man who is able to taste human flesh and tell you exactly how that person has died. Very disgusting, but very great series. We talked about sex criminals. I cannot recommend sex criminals enough, y'all. I think that sex criminals is slept on because the premise is I mean, is strange. I mean, we're talking about people who literally have sex and then when they orgasm, time stops. But I think it's so cool. I think it's like the coolest thing ever. If you're looking for I don't want it's not really kiddie, but it can be kind of kiddish. But it's a young black girl who's the main character, and it's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. And this one's interesting because it's done by Marvel. And what ends up happening is that her and her dinosaur switch places. And I mean, it's not super complex, but it is good. And like I said, just talking in terms of um, talking in terms of Marvel and DC, I like I tell y'all, or like I've said, and for those of you who are just jumping in, um, I definitely would say check out Comic Book Herald because I, even as a reader of DC and Marvel, I'm not well versed enough to give you a starting point. He has, I mean, lists on lists on lists on lists on lists of where you could possibly start. Whereas I am just one that's like, I'm just going to read in chronological order from Marvel, starting from like 1961 and 1962. So, like I said, oh, Kathleen, it's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. That one's done by Marvel. Yeah, it's done by Marvel. And it's interesting because Marvel has teenage, like middle school and teenage versions. It's DC and Marvel, I mean, they're clearly competitors, but it's weird how they do things. So, like I was telling y'all, DC has DC Zoom, which is for a middle grade audience, and then they have like YA versions, and then their regular printed stuff. Sorry, I'm closing my eyes. I close my eyes to remember stuff, and I just noticed it's a habit, but I do that. Whereas Marvel has younger versions of their characters. So, like, Miss Marvel wasn't originally Kamala Khan, but now the Miss Marvel is Kamala Khan. You have a younger version, of course, of Spider-Man, which is Miles Morales. I can't remember the younger version of the Hulk. I can't remember his name. There is Nova, who gets his powers from alien technology, I believe. Then there's the addition of Cyclops, the younger version of him, and They team up, and it's in the Champions comic book run, which is done by Mark Waid, which is interesting. And then the girl from Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, um, they show up, kind of, but show up in the sense of like there's a younger group of Marvel characters out there because at that point, I believe Kamala Khan had gotten pissed at why can't I remember the y'all help me out here. Justice League is DC and who is Marvel? Team up. Why the hell can I not? I'm getting tired. That's what that is. Y'all help me, help me, help me. Marvel team up, y'all. Who is you have Justice League for DC. What is the name of the team up for Marvel? Avengers. Damn, I'm tired. So basically, I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Kamala Khan is pissed at the Avengers in Champions because she feels like the Avengers are the adult team up that they go through, they fight, they destroy cities, and they don't rebuild cities. And Kamala Khan gets super pissed at them. So they, as a younger generation, break off from the Avengers and they form their own group, which is the Champions, which I think only has 2 volumes right now. I don't know how many issues are out, but I think it's only 2 volumes, and that run has been done by Mark Waid. Mark Waid does some really good runs and stuff. I like Mark Waid as a writer. Um, they kind of align themselves in ways that they do things, but they do them a little differently. But you can kind of compare, like, for the Batman of DC, you have Thor. I mean, not Thor. Iron Man in Marvel. When we talk about like no superpowers, but has access to money and technology. Um, you know, Justice League is a DC team up, and the Avengers is the Marvel team up. So I have a lot of comparative stuff getting on. Um, but yes, so like I've been trying to say, because Marvel and DC are so damn deep, I cannot give anybody a starting. I can't give anybody a starting point with Marvel and DC. You either have to. It's you pick by event, you pick by character line, or you pick by chronological order. And it, like I said before, it depends on what you're interested in. DC, I feel like, is a shit show. We talk about chronological order. So you might be better off if you're interested in that, doing that Marvel side and maybe just picking events or reboots. So far from what I've seen, if we're talking about reboots, Rebirth as a whole entity seems to be doing better as a reboot, um, as opposed to DC New 52, which I think universally everybody hated DC New 52. But I think there's a lot of strong comic book readers out there that like have been immersed in comic books for a very long time that have strong opinions about DC New 52. Um, Marvel also did a reboot. Um, and theirs was Marvel Unlimited, I believe, even though I mean that's the name of the app, but I believe that's the name of their reboot as well. So they have a starting point, but Marvel I think is a little bit more is a little bit more accessible. Yeah, Yanni, if you don't like superheroes that much, I don't know how much you would really enjoy because I mean that's what it's all about. But there's a lot of plot and character development and stuff that is really enjoyable to see. Um, I'm kind of split now, honestly, because I think that each has its pros and its cons. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier where I was saying like it depends on what you're grading them on. If we're talking about um uh MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, yeah. I mean, definitely better than DC in adaptations in live action. We talk about animation, DC's better. We talk about TV shows, DC's better. Um, we talk about accessibility, Marvel's better. We talk about, maybe likability of characters. I think DC has the edge on some of the characters. So for me, it's one of those things where it depends on what front are you saying who's better than who, because they both seem to bring their own pros and cons to the table. Yeah, when it comes to big, and the only reason why it's confusing, honestly, with DC and Marvel is because you have to think about how long they've been in the game. I mean, DC's been in the game, we were talking like 30s, 40s. Marvel's been in the game, I think, as early as the 50s, but I've seen more of this stuff more so from the 60s. Um, so when you talk about the time in which they've been in the game, it does. And like we were saying earlier, I mean, you have people who have the hands have been traded and who picks up what characters. And there are people who do, one run of a character and then someone else picks up another run. And each time a new artist or a new writer picks up a character, their story does change a little bit because they're trying to put their own twist to it. You have so many people who are doing Spider-Man now, but you'll for me personally, I don't think it's ever going to be like that initial Stan Lee, Peter Parker type of situation, and the complexity with which Stan Lee wrote Peter Parker in his earlier runs from like the 60s is very interesting because while some parts of Peter Parker are like super intense and um super kind of kitty, he has multiple layers. So it's I don't know, it's different. And I don't think I've ever read anything of Spider Gwen. Underrated favorites? I think she was underrated. I don't think that. If we're talking about this like in terms of like booktube, I don't think people read Chew. I've never seen anybody read Chew. That that's on that's on booktube, and that's a really, really, really great comic book series. That's not seriously mainstream at all. Um, I think that Fairy Tale is underrated. A couple people have read it, but I think Fairy Tale is super underrated. I think The Beauty is underrated, and this is all in terms of booktube, y'all, not like in terms of like people reading these comics because a lot of people read them, but it's stuff that I don't really see like our community necessarily read. Um, I think that Paper Girls in our community is super underrated. I've seen a couple people pick it up, but um, only other person I know that's finished it is Chelsea. Um, Bitterroot is super damn underrated, and I don't know why Bitterroot's underrated. Like, I I don't get that at all. Bitterroot is hella good. Blackbird, I've only heard one other person talk about Blackbird, which is done by Sam Humphries. Blackbird to me is very reminiscent of um, The Wicked and the Divine, which I don't see a lot of people read The Wicked and Divine either. But Shay, I feel like our community, because I think you can talk to this too, is that um outside of booktube, like the comic book side of YouTube reads a lot of the stuff that I read and thousands more and are 20 times more versed in this content than I am. Like so much better at explaining this stuff than I am. In their eyes, I'm definitely a newbie. But in the booktube sphere, like Shay, being in the booktube sphere, like Shay is, I mean, one of the key people when it comes to reading manga. So I think that for us, what we may read and what we may enjoy in respective parts of YouTube is normal, but within booktube I feel like it's it's not as common. So I see people pick up comics in booktube, but it's traditionally like Saga, talk about web comics, Heartstopper, graphic novels, check please. Um, More people are picking up Lock and Key because of the fact that um, it has a TV show on Netflix. So um, Fence. A lot of people have read Fence. I remember when Bingo Love was big in the booktube community. But I mean, there are a lot that I don't see. I think Fables. Nobody really picks up Fables in our community. I know that people really don't pick up a lot of middle grade graphic novels like that because I think that middle grade is also just a very niche part of our community. So, I mean, a lot of what I read, I feel like within our community is not necessarily always read. So, for me, a lot of the stuff that may be generally common outside of our sphere is underrated within our sphere because people don't read comics and graphic novels as much as other communities probably would. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, this is yeah, you're right. Just BookTube in general doesn't do a lot of comic or manga reading at all. So eh, it's interesting having discussions like that. And I'm the same way, Shay. Like, I can't step into manga tube. I feel like I rely on you a lot because it's just easier because it's somebody that I know. Um, but like for me, like when I step into like the comic side of YouTube, it's just so I mean, it's so intense. Like it's super intense. Just like that one guy that I follow, it's two people actually. It's Comic Book University and Comic Books Explain. It's so intense. It's so intense. And it's like even for me as a comic book reader, it's like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. But when I stepped into our community, it's like, oh, you know so much about comics. And I'm like, not really. A little bit, but not it's a lot of what I know I learned from them. And I try to bring it back to our community because I really would love for our community to be reading more manga, comics, and graphic novels because I feel like they're just so underrated in our community and underappreciated when there's such a great medium. There's such a great medium. Catching up on comics. Yeah, Yanni, it's true. It is true. You really do when it comes to getting this deep, you do have to stick like it's very, very specific channels. Um and it's not a lot of us that do. And if it's generalized, it's a lot of ones that become popular that everybody picks up. So like I was saying, like of course, you have your Saga, Check Please, Heartstopper. I think that Junji Ito is getting big because a bigger booktuber picked up on it, and now a lot of people are starting to read um, a lot of his stuff, Lock and Key, because of the TV show. But like, I don't see it a lot. I really I don't see it a lot at all. Yeah, Seiji does read a lot of manga as well. Um, it's just one of those unique aspects where she reads all over the place with a lot of great recommendations. I wish that too. I think people, but it doesn't help either when you have like authors perpetuating that graphic mediums are dumb. That's a different conversation for a different day. But I do think that there's this stigma that comes with reading comics and graphic novels and manga that um, it doesn't count, which I have seen, Shay. I don't know if you've seen that. Like, I've seen people get pissed because which this is dumb anyway. You shouldn't be concerned about someone else's Goodreads goal. It's dumb. It's so dumb. But I see people get pissed about somebody's Goodreads goal, and it's like, oh, well, their Goodreads is only high because they read a lot of comics and manga, as if reading comics and manga has no depth and it has no um it's not as difficult or um it's not as hard as reading prose, which of course, there's less text. So you're able to get through it faster, but I don't think that takes away from the depth that a graphic medium could bring to the table. There are some graphic works that I've read that have more depth than a prose book does, and they get such a bad rep. They get such a bad rep, and I hate that. I really hate that they do. And people feel like they don't count. And as many times as I see on Twitter, people argue, do graphic novels and manga count? Graphic novels, comics, and manga, do they count? Of course they count. It's reading is reading. It just is dumb. It's just dumb. Yeah. So is like the comic book side of YouTube, like heavy. Oh my gosh. Nothing but males dominated like everywhere. Like all of the biggest channels that I follow, nothing but men, nothing but men, and I cling to when I do find women who, read comics or manga because, um, I feel like we're not present at all, and for me, it's a unique experience being a Black woman that reads comics and manga because we're out there, but I think um, in terms of, like, us using a platform like YouTube, not so much. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It's about how word travels and how things get popular, and some things get popular without justification. Um, and it doesn't really make sense how it got popular, especially when there's stuff out there that's better. But it's you usually a bigger person will gravitate towards it, and then all of a sudden it'll just seep its way through the community. Yes, she is. She is. She is. She is. Yes, I love her as well. I've known her since, oh gosh, she was here earlier. Um, by RD, um, she was here earlier, but I feel like I've known her since I've been a part of BookTube. I feel like since at least 2015. And she's another person for me that it I said it was you, her, and Manga Hoarder, who I didn't realize. Brandy told me that Manga Hoarder's on hiatus. The three of y'all are like go to for me in terms of recommendations because it was easy that way instead of trying to go all the way like completely into manga tube. I was like, I can't do it. Can't do it. All right, y'all. So I think I'm gonna call it a night. We've been doing this for almost 3 hours, and your girl has no voice. Yeah, Laura, I miss her content a lot too. I really do. I'm gonna go and watch some of her backlog stuff. No, Shay, of course, of course, of course, of course. Like your stuff is absolutely amazing. So y'all still here. Definitely go check out Shay's channel if you want, because I stumbled my way through um I stumbled my way through the manga portion. Kind of just told you guys really what I read when it comes to manga. But if you're looking for some serious recommendations, Shay does some great videos. Shay, you also have like a playlist, right? Like you have a whole playlist, I believe. Shay can correct me, but I'm sure Shay has like a whole playlist of where like you can see like her manga journey. She has recommendation videos. She has these videos like that are like new releases on her radar. Um, and she has some great titles that you can pick up from watching what's on her radar as well. So definitely check out her channel. And yes, I'm shamelessly plugging you into this. And yes, Shay, whenever you want to do a chat, um, you let me know. I would happy to do a chat. But y'all, it has been great. I appreciate you all coming to this. I hope you've gotten lots and lots of recommendations. Um, and we will talk again another time. Good night.